All right, class, come on, take a seat, especially Sony and Bungie. I want you right up front. Now, you're probably wondering, why is the counselor giving a lesson in the classroom? Like, why am I not just in the counselor's office? Listen, even the counselor has to take you to school sometime and give you some education, because someone's got to do it, because Bungie, Sony, you don't know what you're doing. You have no idea. And the whole downfall of Marathon, yeah, that's your fault. That is 100% your fault, because you suck. I'm sorry, you suck. And I feel bad for anyone that is excited for this game and people who do want to like this game. I feel sorry for them, because you kind of cooked the pooch. And that's what we're going to kind of talk about. We're going to kind of look at the things from the free market. And yes, I know there is a mic in the classroom. It's really weird. Just kind of ignore it. It just doesn't exist. It's all part of your imagination. What, you've never went to high school and had a teacher talking to a mic? You know, there's a first time for everything. But seriously, we're going to talk about the free market. We're going to talk about the reception of Marathon and how a lot of this could have been avoided, or a lot of it, should I say, really couldn't. By the way, I know, as you know, most teachers have an outline of what they're going to teach. I'm kind of free balling it, because I don't usually do the teaching stuff. So having me have like a schedule of things of what we're going to do and a script, nah, who needs that, right? We're just going to free ball it, just like Bungie did with Marathon. We're just going to wing it. So based on their example, here we go. So let's talk about it. The free market determines the value of any product, whether it's fast food, whether it's, you know, cars or houses, or even video games. That's right. The free market determines the value. And we're talking about Marathon. And right now, the value is marked pretty low. Not very many people are excited. Sure, there's a group, and there's always going to be a group, right? Let's be honest. This is Bungie. They have a loyal cult following. Regardless whether you play Destiny or not, there's always going to be a cult following. You could even say that for like Ubisoft. There's a cult following. You could say that for Activision. There will always be those dedicated fans. No matter what it is, they will play it, they will buy it, they will consume it, but they aren't the majority, right? They're called a cult because they're not the majority. And when we're looking at the free market, what matters is the majority. What do they want? What do they seek? What do they want to consume? And in a business, your job is to sell a product that you want to be consumed by the masses, as many people as possible, because it's not like a charity. You're not just trying to make games to just make games, unless you're an indie developer like Schedule One and Power World, right? Or if you're like Baldur's Gate, sure, you're focusing 100% on the gameplay for the gamers, which is great. But those are dime a dozen. When we're looking at like Ubisoft, do you think Ubisoft makes games just for the fun of it? No, they make games for money. And Bungie is no different. Isn't that right, Bungie? You love making money. We see the wheels turning in Pete Parsons' eyes. Yeah, we see that. But what's the problem with Marathon? Why is Marathon being received so negatively by the free market? Why is it essentially on the downward trend? Why is it doomed to be mediocre at best? And we have to break it down. Seriously, we're going to break it down on the board for you guys to really kind of hopefully learn. And I think this is going to be a great case study for developers in the future, how to not screw up your new release before it even launches. So let's dive into it. Let's talk about presentation. You know, the thing that most people get right when they're trying to sell a new product, they package it up, they make it look pretty, they try to do a good job. Presentation is very important. The problem is Bungie has, I guess, forgot how to do presentation. You guys, you need to really figure your crap out. Okay. Your Marathon should have not been the mess it was. And what am I talking about? Let's talk about the reveal, right?
You know, we've obviously got a chance to go ahead and dive a little deeper. We've done some telling. Let's go ahead and do some more showing by taking a bit of a deeper dive into some more Marathon gameplay.
I was going to say, can we see some more gameplay?
How is it that we have a new game that's supposed to go branch out beyond Destiny in the Destiny community that's supposed to just try to grip into the extraction shooter, community. But Bungie, you've decided to treat everyone like they're already aware of you, and like we're like buddies, we're best pals. What I mean is, why is it that majority of your live stream and your presentation was just developers talking? Do you know how much of a disconnect? People don't care about you. They don't. Do you go to McDonald's and try to have a conversation with everyone that works there? Like, man, thanks for the burger. Let's talk about your life. How's the wife and kids doing? How are they doing? No one cares. No one cares about you. What they care about is the product that you're trying to sell. And this isn't Destiny where you're talking to your community that's been around, your dedicated fans. You're talking about a new game that you're trying to pull in a new audience. Why are you treating them like they actually care about you? They care about the new game. Focus on that first. And then after you've built some years with your community, it's set in stone, then try to be more personable to them, because no one actually gives a shit. I'm sorry. It is a failed display. That majority of your presentation is humans. No one cares about you. They don't care about what you think about the game. They're not here to think, oh man, the developers really like their own game. Who are you making the game for? You or the consumer? And that's part of the problem, is you start off with a presentation that seems like you're patting yourself on the back, like, man, we made a great game. Didn't we, Jim? Didn't we, Jim? You son of a bitch. We made a great game. I love that guy. I went to his wedding once, and then I watched as his child was born too. Kind of looks like me. It is laughable that Bungie doesn't understand the basic concept of delivery. And I think Astacross showed a perfect clip of what that good delivery should be.
The gameplay video needed a very tightly edited Vidoc, not a bunch of dudes yapping about a game they haven't shown us yet. I'm sorry, Milo. I'm hijacking this stream right now. Can I just say, you know who does the best fucking reveals ever?
Nathan Rogers, game director.
Look how this opens up.
On Path of Exile 2. Welcome to GGG Live. Twitch drops are enabled on today's live stream, so make sure you follow the instructions below. Slain rare
By the way, this is 40 minutes, 39 minutes, and 39 and a half minutes of just straight injecting information into thy brain, straight from the gameplay director. The reason why I'm bringing up GGG right here is because they have a way of showing us their game, and it just keeps escalating. As they go further, you're like, do they got more to show? There's more? There's more? And then these fuckers get on the screen. They're like, that's right. We've got more and more. You know who else does more? You know who else shows more? We need to go.
Keep moving.
Go.
We've obviously got a chance to go ahead and dive a little deeper. We've done some telling.
All right, moving on to the next subject. We're moving on to the two different categories that are one and the same, kind of toxic positivity and toxic negativity. I think both of these have played a massive part in the downfall of Marathon and what has caused the free market to not like Marathon. Let's start with toxic positivity. I don't know who thought it was a smart, ingenious idea to start overhyping Marathon before we even had gameplay reveal. The amount of developers who were promoting creators who were also overhyping and shouting to the wind, oh my God, Marathon is going to be amazing. And all we had was a sneak peek reveal or pictures. That's it. That's all we had. That's all we had. And yet the hype for this was so astronomically unbalanced, and just anyone in the free market were like, yeah, this is kind of stinky. This is a little fishy. And it's very obvious who the content creators who are in bed with Bungie. You can absolutely just you could smell the stink coming from them because it's so blatantly obvious. And that really does hurt the bottom dollar of Marathon, because if you're overhyping something that there's nothing for, people are immediately going to, one, don't trust you, and two, when it doesn't meet to the expectations of that hype that's been preset, it causes a massive crash. So you're setting something up for failure when you should just let it present itself. And that's the problem. People were smelling the stink from these content creators that were obviously in bed with Bungie. It's not doing them any favors. What's even worse is they did like an ARG, which is great. I mean, the ARG got the Destiny community interested in the secrets because that's kind of what's prototypical for the Destiny community, but no one else in the mass majority, pretty much a small fraction maybe got involved, but the majority of people who were in the know of Bungie already, like Destiny wise, had no idea what the Marathon ARG is, nor actually cared. That's why you didn't see any of the well-known content creators interacting with this ARG. So like, who's this for? Who's this for? And of course you have these same content creators using this as a point to shout to the wind, oh my God, Marathon is so amazing. There's the secret Easter egg. Marathon's amazing, guys. And you have people who aren't part of the Destiny community like, what are you talking about? We haven't even got gameplay yet. And that is hurting the bottom dollar. And we've seen in other instances. I'm not a political guy, but I think we can tell that influencers who are promoting their candidate doesn't always work out the way you think it does. And even now that Marathon has received a lot of negativity, you have a lot of content creators going defense that are trying to play off the overwhelming negativity as just a vocal minority. It's just the Discord people, or it's just the Twitter people. And when you look everywhere, there is discourse, there's negativity. Even if you look at their YouTube, you look at all the reveal trailer, it is overwhelmingly negative compared to the positivity. So you have all these content creators that are in bed with Bungie doing their dangest to try to salvage this, which only makes people more mad if you try to gaslight them and tell them they're wrong, or that they need to shut up or stop criticizing a game that's not out yet, even though we have gameplay and we have information and the market is not stupid and can come from a conclusion based on that information. But when you try pushing back at the over majority of the free market and tell them they're wrong, they're going to push back, and it causes a negative cycle where people are going to try to play defense, and then the market's going to push back even harder. And we are seeing that right now. There's also a lot of toxic negativity going on here. When I say toxic negativity, I mean negativity that has no real merit, or at least it has merit, but it's so obscene and absurd. And I'll give you a perfect example. The whole debate about sex appeal. Let's watch a clip.
So if you're making a shooter game that's primarily made for men, then you should make sure that all of the female characters in the game are fuckable.
Even though I don't subscribe to having sex with robots, or wanting to stare at sexy robots, I do get where Asmongold is coming from, and he does present some logical points. It's just really overshadowed with the whole sex appeal. But he's absolutely correct in the fact that when we'll talk about art direction later. But for the point of, do I need to feel like I want to have sex with the robot or the character I'm playing? I personally don't, but I get that people don't want to look at ugly things too. But like the whole issue, like Grums and the whole DEI wokeness, and this is going to be a Discord 2.0. Listen, I don't want to be involved in this whole woke and DEI stuff, but not every little thing has to be considered woke. Can we, just like not everything has to be considered racist, not everything has to be considered woke. Can we stop? Can we please? And no, I don't think this is Discord level failure. That's why it's the downfall of Marathon, not the death. We're not dead yet, and I don't think it's dead on arrival. I think that's over negative, assuming that this is going to be dead. I played Destiny for years. If that cult or part of that cult following follows those content creators that are in bed with Bungie, they're going to pump this game with life support. It may be a decrepit, ancient, living little body, but it will survive. We've seen this in Halo Infinite, where the community that's still playing it literally buys everything microtransaction and is pumping the blood into that half-life corpse. So, no, I don't think this is a dead-on-arrival game. I don't think it's Concord 2.0. That's how annoyed I am just having to say that stupid game. Not everything is going to fail like Concord. And yes, I know. I just found out that there's actual Concord devs and that Bungie developers worked on Concord, and then some of those developers from Concord now worked on Marathon, and it's just a cycle of garbaggio. Can we just not can we criticize the game for the game and not who worked on what? Like, again, it's not Concord. Can we stop? It delegitimizes any criticism that you have. It's stupid. It's stupid. And you know whose fault it really is? It's Sony. That's right. I'm pointing at you. It's your fault for not stepping in and forcing advertisement in a way that wouldn't make it look like Discord 2.0, because people have made this assumption based on the reveal and how unappealing it is, which we'll get to that in a minute. But you, Sony, are part of the problem. You let Bungie do whatever they want, and you need to hold their hand. We have historical context to show that Bungie is incompetent to do anything on their own. And you, Sony, have told them yourself. You've told them that you didn't agree with them. You told them that you're disappointed in them. Like, what are you doing? You're responsible. You are part of the problem because you are not doing what you need to do to ensure the success of this game. But yes, for anyone out there, this is not Concord 2.0. I do not care what your argument is. I do not care if you think, oh, you're just woke and you're all about DI. No, look through my channel. I try to avoid that garbage conversation every step of the way because I judge a game by the gameplay, by what it provides and offers on the free market. Not everything is woke to me. In fact, I don't even subscribe to the concept of woke or the overemphasis on racism or whatever ism is out there in the gaming world that people want to shove down my throat. I'm just a gamer who wants to play a fun game that isn't tacked on with political intrigue and drama and is shoving microtransactions and trying to milk me like a cow. Like, I just want to have the good old days where I booted up my console and I played a game. No extra strings. I just got the controller, play with some buds, have stupid fun time without the mess. And it was good games. Even though it was pixelated graphics, it was fun and it was complete on purchase. It wasn't something that was being worked on as we went on. So that's my thought. I know we kind of went like a mini rant, but for those out there who may not even stick to the end, at least I get you a little prelude into my thoughts about the whole Concord, because I think it's ridiculous. Let's talk about it. The next part on the problem on the board is it's an attraction shooter. That's right. That is one of the biggest problems with Marathon, is that they chose an extraction shooter. And if you ask anyone who plays extraction shooters, Bungie is late to the party.
For me personally, it doesn't look like anything I haven't seen before, aside from the art direction. So what does it have to keep the player engaged? Gameplay, of course. The thing, however, is that the gameplay here seems like it would have appealed to people like 5 years ago. It really does seem to me as if Bungie is cashing in on a trend that's on its way out already. I mean, I was there day one when Apex Legends came out, and seeing this, I'm not seeing anything special.
They're late. And it's funny, I've seen IGN point to, oh, this could be the Fortnite of, the extraction shooters. And they compare Fortnite to PUBG, but the issue with that comparison in the first place, when we're talking about like the situation we're in with Marathon, is that PUBG was a paid product, whereas Fortnite was free. And Tarkov is a paid product, and so is Marathon, but Tarkov is more complete and fleshed out for what, $50? And so if this is $40, this is an incomplete project. Yeah, anyone in the extraction shooter genre or wanting to get into it is better off for the bang for your buck to learn to play. Because here's the reality. If you want to get involved into extraction shooters, which is a niche, we'll get to that in a minute, you're better off if you want to invest and actually get good at it, play Tarkov. Yes, Tarkov has issues, but it also provides a stronger value to your buck. It has a much more intricate system, has a lot more replay value than what Marathon seems to be providing, which is supposed to be an arcade social game, which we've seen those games before, and they don't usually last very long. And the problem, like I said, extraction shooters are a niche. So Bungie's making a game, Marathon, into an extraction shooter, which already has a niche population.
I think a lot of people are preaching platitudes when it comes to this game. I think that Sony spent $400 million on Concord. How much are they willing to spend on a Bungie live service title? I would guarantee there's some serious cash that flew into this. Not only that, but they spent $3 billion acquiring that company. They cannot afford for this game to be niche, but that's exactly what this game is going to be, because that's just what this genre is. And keep in mind, the Destiny 2 has not been financially viable, or at least not as profitable as Sony needed it to be when they purchased Bungie for that $3 billion.
So they're competing within a niche population that is already dominated by Tarkov and other games like Hunt Showdown. There's Delta Force. There's a bunch of other mini games outside of like Tarkov that provide some competition. And now you have Bungie who's trying to dip their toes into it.
My first couple of minutes of impressions were like, I think this looks good, but I don't think this looks spectacular. I just think it looks good. And in a market which is harder to release a AAA video game in than maybe ever before, and more expensive to release a video game in than ever before, is just good, especially from Bungie, gonna be good enough? I don't know, right?
And the biggest case argument I've seen is, what about the console players? What about the console players? Well, let's look at it. To play online for console players, you have to pay a subscription service to play online. So there's a wall. Then you have your other wall. You have to pay for Marathon. So you have two walls that are blocking you from accessing the game right off the rip. Whereas you can just play Marvel Rivals, Fortnite, Apex Legends. And yes, they may not be extraction shooters, but that doesn't matter. The market looks at video games. If people like extraction shooters, they might also like Apex Legends. Has a similar vibe. You extract, you don't really extract. You just try to win. It's a battle royale, right? You're just trying to win. And that's the problem with Marathon. It's supposed to be an extraction shooter, but they water it down so much that it almost feels like it's just another Apex.
Like the epitome of what happens every single time. You come in, whether you're a AAA dev or an indie or whatever, you try to come into an extraction game and you try to make it and you try to remove the friction. There's a lot of friction in a game like Tarkov. There's a lot of like complexity and things that might not want you to open up the game ever. Hundreds of bullet types, thousands of individual items, quests that don't tell you at all where to go, no map. I mean, the weapon attachment system is like, what am I doing? Right? So much friction. There's so much friction to play Tarkov. Most people don't even open that game. But that friction is what makes the game so popular to its core audience. So it's weird. You come in, you're a new dev or a AAA dev, whatever, and you want to remove the friction? Great. You remove the friction, the game is smooth, the game's easy to play, anyone can just click play and just be right in it. But they only play for a couple weeks or a month, and then they're like, well, there's nothing left to learn. Well, yeah, that's because you just removed all the friction. All the friction's gone, all the tooltips. Like, for example, A perfect example is this, yeah? On this screen, you see every single item and its value. You don't learn the value as a player. You instantly are told what it's worth. That is a developer coming in and saying, we're going to remove the friction and remove the complications of like the complexity of like seeing an item and being like, what is this? We're just going to tell you what it is. It's worth $1,000. That's it. Great if you're playing the game for the first time. Bad if you're playing the game for the 1,000th time. Because what makes extraction shooters good and interesting is giving that player the knowledge, the tools to like learn the game themselves, figure out what a pack of cigarettes is for. And I know it's really stupid, and nobody thinks like that. Most people are like, just tell me what the pack of cigarettes are for, man. But what's fun about extraction shooters is when they don't tell you.
It feels like it's just another almost battle royale. In fact, it almost feels like they should have just made it a battle royale, because not only does it have the downing system as Apex and Fortnite, it also has the revive option as Fortnite and Apex. It is weird because they have eliminated pretty much everything about an extraction shooter except for the fact that you do task and you extract. That is it. Every other feature that they've showcased is prototypical to a battle royale. Like, it has been done already. There is nothing new or impressive that is different from any battle royale that is currently out right now.
Or most of the people in my inner circle, they feel like Marathon is soft. They feel like Marathon is soft. They feel like from a gameplay loop, obviously extraction shooters are very simple. You go in, you don't die, you kill everything, you get out alive, right? But in terms of build crafting and everything else, it feels soft. It feels soft.
And then anything that is, you could say, extraction shooter wise, is done already better by Tarkov.
This is pertains to the weird artificial limitations on weapon customization. So if you find a weapon attachment in game, you can apply that to your gun if there's nothing in that slot already, but if you want to take a weapon attachment off a gun, you can't do that in game at all, and right now I believe you can't do that out of game either. There was a point where you could use a certain item, like an expensive item, and redeem it to take attachments off guns, but I don't like that either. I feel like you should just be able to pull attachments off guns, like whenever you want, in-game or out of game, with no cost, because that allows you to be more individual and specific with the loot that you pick up, and it just seems like a weird artificial limitation. I really hope that gets changed by the time the game releases. This is
it's kind of, it just didn't look right.
It's funny you say that, because Skill Up was like, yeah, this is not, it's not there yet. And even the people that were positive about it are like, it's not, it's like really early. And Bungie wants the community to really help shape the game. I'm like, man, get the fuck out of here with that. I don't like that they're going to, and one of the feedbacks is, oh, I like it that they're working with the community and they're going to build the game from the beginning, but I don't like that. They're going to build the game on the fly with their community. To be fair, everyone does that. So what is unique about that?
Like about
nothing.
It's unique because they're like, hey, give me your feedback, but also give me
me your money.
We'll take your feedback. That's $40.
That's what I wrote. It just means that you didn't put in a full effort up front. You have a solid concept, but then you get the players to build it for you, and you charge them to do it for you.
I don't believe it. I don't believe it at all. I think it's just Sony made up nonsense because they shit the bed with Concord so badly.
Yeah.
That they don't want another. This should be a free to play game. It's not, right? It's Sony, and it's going to cost $40. It's probably not going to be good enough for that, and Sony doesn't want to lose another $400 million.
Yeah.
And so this has to be successful. So I think that they're telling people, "Oh, we'll help you design it." It's like, are you really, or is the game for the most part kind of set in stone, other than the graphics?
Yeah.
And you're just saying that so the community doesn't turn on you.
So you have this niche category Bungie's trying to pull in, but then they're also trying to pull in their Destiny community. We'll get to that in a minute. We'll talk about who this is actually for just a moment. But you're trying to pull these niche people into a niche, right? You're trying to pull away from the competitors while also trying to pull new people who normally wouldn't play, but you have all these walls. And yes, it should absolutely be a free to play. The fact that it's not a free to play is a massive wall on its own, especially for console players. Bungie, if you're trying to make this a more casual experience, and that's exactly what they're doing, they're removing all the guardrails, they're removing all the challenges. Oh, death? Well, that's not a challenge because you can get res. If you fall down, you get picked right up. It only nullifies everything your opponent did. Oh, what's that? You got fully killed? Well, your teammate can run away, come back, and res you guys as if nothing happened. Again, you're removing all these difficulties and challenges that make an attraction shooter fun and challenging, and you're casualizing it. So if you're going to casualize this, then you're trying to pull in casual players. And most casual players are the people who have a full-time job, who aren't streamers and content creators. You have people who have families or have 2 jobs. If this is your target audience, then putting up a paywall is going to make it even harder because, you know, John Doe out there has 2 jobs. He doesn't have the affordable income to just toss out $40 and hope it's worth it. They want to make sure that their time is used correctly as well. Well, they're just going to play Fortnite. They're just going to play Apex Legends or Marvel Rivals. There's so many other games in the market that is free to play live service that provides a well cemented service that has, you know, success. People are not going to want to take a chance on a game that they're not even for sure about because there is no like route that's taken place. They're absolutely just going to go to what is free without spending a buck. That's the bottom dollar. The fact that Bungie has decided to make this attraction shooter a premium is going to kill it. It is going to kill it. And when I say kill it, the game itself is going to kill the drive for people to try to play it because there's a wall immediately in front of it. I think that is the biggest, I think, block that Bungie and even Sony needs to remove. Being free to play opens up availability for any kind of player. Anyone who normally would never touch an attraction shooter now can just download it to see what it is. In fact, Bungie, Sony, if you are smart, if you are intelligent, you will capitalize on all the negativity. This is the perfect way to do an Uno reverse card. You take all this negativity, where it's rightly earned or not earned. We'll get to it in a minute. You can take all this negative publicity and flip it around by making it free to play. Because even people who would hate this game, or people who are like, what's all the hate about? If it's free to play, they can just download it and try it for themselves. And you might end up getting them hooked into it. It is free publicity, it is free marketing. If you like, plot twist, it's free. You hate this game? Try it for yourself and see how it is. Oh. It would be like 4D chess, but I don't think Sony and Bungie are going to do it. I think they're too greedy. And I think it's giving them too much credit to be intelligent enough to give this game the boost it needs by making it free to play. I absolutely do believe that they're too greedy. They're smelling their own fart, and they're not going to do what's actually best for the gaming community. They're going to do best what they think is to fill in their wallets and try to get as much of a cash grab as they can by getting $40 out of those willing to actually try this game. I think it's a massive misstep on their part. And I think if they were smart, they would Uno reverse card the situation, take advantage of the free marketing and negative publicity. Like, bad publicity is good publicity when it's a free game that people can download and try for themselves. I'm just saying. And you'd be like, what about the beta? People don't care about the beta. They'll play it, but people won't play until it's the final product because they're going to want to see what all the criticisms and all the things that people point out in the beta. They want to see some changes in the full product, and that's what they want to try is the full product. It is recent that proximity chat was added. However, I think proximity chat being added to Tarkov gave it so much life. People who are jaded, who are content creators who are tired, got a new tool in their pocket to make content, because there's nothing more random than talking to random human beings. The interactions, whether they can be friends or, hey, let's team up, or, hey, let's duke it out. You can have these conversations that you normally never would, which is something that Bungie is deciding, yeah, we're not going to learn from that. We're just going to make no prox chat. Which makes no sense when they advertise this as a social arcade extraction. social, yet there's no social features in it. What do you mean? What am I gonna sit here and try to chat in the local chat? Like, guys, we gotta do this mechanic. Guys, we gotta do this mechanic. Guys, we gotta kill the USD. And if you kill him and then I kill the boss, we'll trade the loot, okay? It's like, what do you mean? And it's because it's too toxic. This is another problem of why your game is highly disliked and why people are making fun of it. It's because you treat people like they're fucking stupid. Toxic. Let me remind you that the free-to-play child's game, Fortnite, has proximity chat. Isn't that crazy? One of the most successful live service games has proximity chat. And I didn't specify Grand Theft Auto, which is the real #1 live service game, which also has prox chat, but granted, it's also rated R and all that stuff. But Fortnite, which is a child's game, has proximity chat. But Bungie says, no, we can't do that. It's too toxic, which is funny. It's funny. You're pulling from the Destiny community, but yet you're afraid for toxicity, or at least you're trying to pull from the Destiny community, and you're saying we don't want to do it to avoid toxicity. Wow. There's a lot that I could say about that, but we're gonna move on. It is funny because they water down the game, and I think there was a perfect example when we were talking about who's this game for. You're trying to pull attraction shooters, and then Destiny, are getting hyped and trying to get their community. Even though this game was not advertised as Destiny 3, this game was not advertised to be PvE. In fact, it doesn't even have a PvE mode, which I'm gonna say for Bungie, that is a big mistake. And here's why. One, Tarkov has a PvE mode now. Not only that, but Bungie, what is Bungie known for? Bungie, what are you known for? You made Halo. What is something that has kept Halo Infinite alive all these years? I don't know. It could be Forge mode. Yeah, that thing that is one of the most successful inventions you made, Forge mode. In fact, it's so successful, Fortnite has their own custom game Forge mode. In fact, you see games that would normally be in Halo games also in Fortnite. In fact, people are playing Prop Hunt from custom games. It's just, how do you drop your golden goose? The things that Bungie has done well, and they don't apply it to any of their product. Hell, they didn't even do Forge mode for Destiny, which would have given it so much life support, because we've seen that from Halo Infinite, because literally the Forgers making the maps and new content is all that's been holding it up all these years. It is insane to me that if they didn't have the time, or if this is a rushed product, which, let's be honest, Marathon is absolutely rushed. It is an incomplete product, which we'll get to that in a minute. It's an incomplete product, which they could have salvaged if they didn't want to make a PvE mode or didn't have time for it. They could literally make a Forge mode and or allow mods for an offline PvE experience. Allow them to mod it, allow them to do whatever they want. The NPCs, make their own boss fights, kind of like Fortnite does. There's a lot that they could do, but they've chosen not to do it. Meanwhile, even some of their content creators that are in bed with them are advertising this as a PvE only, but now they've gotten so much negative backlash because so many people from the Destiny community and people who know Bungie for their campaigns and storylines are upset that it is not any actual PvE content or single player content. It is funny because the amount of people who don't understand an extraction shooter is mind-blowing. I have seen more Destiny players upset that Marathon isn't like a public sector space where you do public events, and it's not like you can play Destiny in Marathon. It is insane that Bungie has done such a poor marketing of this game that they've managed to try to entice Destiny players while also pissing them off now that they know that it's not a PvE game, or isn't a PvE centered game, should I say. Not only that, you have these people who are loyal to Bungie and Destiny who are coming to the realization that you lose your loot, and then at the end of every season there's a wipe. By the way, this is all prototypical for extraction shooters. This isn't new. This isn't something that Bungie just manifested. So you can't, these people who are upset about the fact that they're losing loot and it's going to be wiped, like, oh, I hate that, or the fact that there's no skill-based matchmaking. Welcome to an extraction shooter, which goes to the problem of Bungie chose to make an extraction shooter, which is causing all the conflict. Are you stupid? You are better off making a battle royale. You would have probably a better shot of surviving than making an extraction shooter where everyone would be pissed because they're losing their stuff and it's getting wiped. All that is going down the toilet. They're upset. And then now it has become such an issue, especially the Destiny side of things, with all these content creators gaslighting their communities and the Destiny community. They're so upset that now what you have is that the same content creators who are in bed with Bungie, and even the Bungie developers, are doing an Uno reverse card. They're trying so hard to advertise the PvE side of the game, which, by the way, is not new for extraction shooters. Tarkov literally has well-trained NPCs. They're not just dumb. They can be dumb, but they're also really freaking dangerous if you ignore them. Not only that, the bosses will destroy you. It is not a joke. So we already have PvE. We already have tasks. We have collectibles. We have the whole reputation system. We have the rarity of this gun is rare. These parts are rare. We have the whole shebang bang, which isn't new. But then you have developers trying to package everything as, whoa, our NPCs are really strong. These content creators like, man, you can't ignore these NPCs. There's PvE. You can go questing and do quests. And even so, it is so bad that Bungie is now advertising, and their content creators are advertising, that there's raid mechanics. That's right. You know, Destiny players love raid mechanics. We've got those in the PvP. That's right. We've got that. Even though you did everything to tell people it's not a PvE game, they're trying so hard. Even one of the content creators try to do a playthrough of just trying to avoid as much actual PvP and just focus on PvE as much as possible, which is funny. You can do the same thing with Tarkov. It doesn't make it a PvE game if you avoid all the PvP. That is just what an extraction shooter is. It's not unique. It's not something special. It's not something dedicated that only Marathon achieves. You literally have other games where you can do tasking. You can do tasking, killing NPCs, avoiding every human being possible. It is very possible to already do. Bungie's trying to paint Marathon as a new innovation to the genre, and it's not. It's a de-evolution of the genre. They're trying to de-evolution it, water it down so that they can get more casual players, which doesn't make sense because you want the dedicated players. You don't want people that are going to play the game for a week and then leave. You want the people that are going to spend weeks and weeks. But the problem is when you devalue the system, you devalue your own game, and you make it so casual, people won't stick around. At least the dedicated veterans will get bored of it, and then your little Andes will play it and then hop off, and then you just have a dead population. But one of the biggest mistakes is that they're trying to advertise it, and they're only really advertising this raid mechanic for the 4th map, which is so funny that they think that Marathon could be saved by one map. One map is going to save this game. That's right. You're spending $40 that you should only exclusively play the one map. But not that. We're talking about lore too. That's right. Bungie is trying to sell you that there's lore, that is what's enriching. And when you actually listen to the developer.
So, I mean, when we're talking a minute ago about the story, about innovation, you said story is a big focus. Really keen to sort of dive into that a little bit, because I mean, as we were here today, we obviously couldn't experience a lot of that because we're in a quick play test and we don't get the chance to dive into it in much depth. But we understand that the kind of narrative framework is built at this point, and that you guys are looking to build the narrative content over the next little while and lead up to launch. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's definitely true. Although I will say that narrative is slightly different in a game like this.
Okay.
It's really hard to kind of think about. Let me rephrase this. There's an interesting conflict when it comes to PvP games and narrative, right? In PvP games, the majority of the narrative, you want to focus on what the player is doing and the story that they're telling of the actions they're taking inside of the game, you know? And so you don't want to crush that by basically forcing them into some sort of narrow box of what's happening in the world. So for us to make it breathe, where players can tell all sorts of different stories about what they're happening, we really focus on sort of providing what Julia, our director, has called systemic narrative, systemic narrative storytelling, which means that we're creating a context around the player, you know, a context in the player of a world that sort of is changing and shifting around them. But how they interact with it is done through things like the perspective of a runner taking contracts from their employer, whether it be a faction A or faction B or faction C. And then that gives a lens into the world that exists there. But additionally, on top of that, because our game is kind of about finding things and getting them out, there's also a sort of detective mystery kind of in there where we're building a system that's associated with collecting things. And then as you collect them, you'll get pieces of clues of what's happening in the world around there. So
just talking about this, so I feel like it might be the best question to start with. My first question, how will you convince those who have kind of already written off extraction shooters to actually try Marathon? Like, what about Marathon is different that will convince those who already wrote it off to try it?
You know, Bungie, it's more about the stories that you make, right, as you go on runs and contracts that you complete, that you know, whether you need to extract or not with them, where you feel like you're moving the chains forward in your progression consistently.
Okay, good.
And also, yeah, and so you know, there's a bunch of actions you can take in the world. Like every time you open a box in the world, you're getting new caloric faction rep. Right?
You find out it's just you get lore through doing quests, like turning in quests and stuff, and then collecting items where you then infer, like Dark Souls, you infer your own, you know, storyline of what's going on. Which is funny because this isn't new. This whole approach to having lore in PvP, Fortnite literally does it.
So, quick recap. The 7 are gone, Paradigm's jumped into the 0 point, and it's all down to us to figure out what's going on with the island. We should start here. See if the 7 left anything useful behind. So, the scientist computer seems a little upset.
What cruel and merciless subroutine would do this to me?
It's been done. And let me tell you, it's been done and no one, overwhelmingly, the majority, doesn't care. They don't care. It's cool, but it isn't something innovative that Bungie wants to try to make for an extraction shooter. It's not that innovative. Which it's funny because they have the template, but they don't actually have the lore. There's a lot of back and forth. And here's the problem. You can't really trust Bungie. They flip flop on everything, especially when it comes to it's not a PvE game. Oh, but we have PvE. You should absolutely check it out if you love Destiny. You should absolutely play it because it has PvE. You should definitely play it. Oh, it doesn't have lore. Oh, wait, but we do have lore. There is no hook in this extraction shooter. There is nothing that stands out. And we haven't even talked about art direction. The gameplay is just your prototypical Destiny like gameplay, which we have seen. If the gameplay itself was good enough, Destiny would be successful. Let's hold on to that. The gameplay is not enough to save a game. There are so many other factors that play a part. The gameplay of literally Destiny is in this game. The gunplay is 1 for 1, pretty much the same. And now you're also adding the hero shooter component with, you know, like Apex, where they have abilities. Again, we've had that in Destiny, and if that was enough to keep that game going and being thriving, again, surviving is not the same as thriving. Destiny's surviving. I don't expect much different from Marathon, which is funny because we look at the animations as well. Bungie literally copied the animations from Destiny. So there's some Destiny. We have the Warlock and then the Titan Punch and then some of the weapon animations. It looks cheap. It looks unfinished. And that's part of the problem, the presentation of the game. You cannot tell anyone that literally in 5 months we're going to solve this whole problem. We're not. What's even worse, when we're talking about extraction shooters, one of the nice things about extraction shooters is that you have the ability to pick up your friend's gear if they die granted, Bungie's like, oh, well, that doesn't matter. If you die, you can come back at any time. You just never die. But extraction shooter, if your buddy dies, you can pick up their loot and you can walk out with it. Well, unfortunately, you can't even do that. That's right. You picked up some loot that you want to share with your friend. Guess what? You hand it over and trade it to your friend. They took it away. They took the ability to trade loot away. If you wanted to just give it away, it just goes back to the person that owns it. But you can't help your friend out. You can't just give them and let them keep it. You have to continue to just drop it at, bring in your multiple guns so you can give them a gun while you have your own gun instead of just giving them the gun that they can have for the next round. Just absurd that's a feature that they decided to remove. It's dumb. Now, is it the biggest problem? No, but it adds on to the presentation of the extraction shooter. People are looking at it like, what about these other extraction shooters versus Marathon? But even more so when we're talking about who's this for, and we're talking about the whole we're talking about weapons in an extraction shooter. Customization is very important. Really, we're doing just 4 attachments? At least Call of Duty has more than 4 attachments. You just make a Call of Duty version of attachments. It's not that hard. It's not like we have perfect examples of what guns with attachments would look like. But then you go to the player customization, which we'll talk about that later. But essentially, there's none. There's no customization. It's literally just skins. You have the most generic skins. There's no like any other customization, kind of like, Halo, Reach. People talk about Reach and how it was fantastic for customization. And guess what? Reach came from Bungie. And even Destiny, you can do all the different armor pieces to build out your character. Here we decided, you know what? We're just going to do skins like Call of Duty. A couple of things I want to point out: the whole not being able to queue against solos. Again, that is a negative thing for Marathon. But that's not something that's normal. Like even Tarkov, you load in solo, and sometimes you'll find a lot of times you'll have like a raid where you're going in and there's a bunch of solos, or you might go against a 5-stack or a 3-stack or a 2-stack. That is part of the game. In fact, Tarkov is so a game where one dude can get the jump on a group and kill the group because you cause panic when one person goes down. Unfortunately, you don't have the same principle with Marathon because everyone has such high time to kill. And granted, so does Tarkov, but Tarkov also has this randomness ability part of it where you could have the best gear, but one bullet could kill a high geared guy. Whereas in Marathon, you're looking at a guy has overshield. You have to kill the overshield, then kill the guy, and then hope in the process of killing the one dude, we all have high time to kill here. You hope that the other 2 people don't mow you down in the process. Again, you're going to see people who are going to make plays, but again, that's going to be more on the top echelon, and this game is supposed to be geared toward the casuals, hence the arcade social game. Again, the high tiers are going to absolutely destroy the casuals. It is going to be a massacre. And not only that, like, what is this advertisement? You know what? Hold that thought. We're going to go right into visuals because it's perfect. It's a perfect segue for what I'm going to say. Who's this like age group like for this game? Let's talk about it, shall we? The visual is one of the second biggest gap that is going to keep people from playing Marathon, leading to its downfall.
It kind of looks Apex Legends if a Office highlighter exploded in my oh jeez.
Listen, you can love it, you can appreciate it, but the majority of the free market does not like the art style. And that is a big thing. Does everything need to look sexy? No, but looking badass or cool or just appealing in general, absolutely.
And so again, I just think that if you make characters like this, they're going to be very unappealing, and people aren't going to really resonate with them at all, and it's off-putting. And I think that's another really big component to it that a lot of people might not understand, is that when somebody sees a character design that looks weird, like this, for example, I think this is like kind of fine, but like in general, if they see a character design that looks weird, they won't want to play the game. That's it. they're just not going to be interested in the game because it looks weird. And so, okay, screw it. Yeah, exactly. And again, like, I think that pretty much every single circumstance, it's always a bad idea to make characters that are not conventionally attractive.
I think Bungie's making the same mistake that Activision did with Infinite Warfare. In fact, if you look how disliked Marathon is and compare it to Infinite Warfare, you see the pattern, the trend. And what was going on with Infinite Warfare that had so much hate towards it? Well, it broke the precedents. It broke what people were used to when it comes to a Call of Duty game. They took Call of Duty to space. That's right. They made it futuristic. They took the whole environment, they took the look of it and made it more space focused, and people didn't like it. In fact, it was so hated that even after that game was a failure, Activision went on so many different tours, multiple games. They had to clarify boots are back on the ground. It was celebrated, it was rejoiced. It was a massive deal that even journalists were talking about it nonstop, about boots on the ground, because it broke what the company has protypically delivered to its market. And we have the same problem with Marathon. Bungie, known for its futuristic sci-fi games like Halo, badass. You have Destiny, which has great skyboxes, intricate guns and character design. And then you look at Marathon and it completely goes off the chart in the wrong direction. It goes completely different from what people expect from Bungie and their games. The core audience, the market, does not like this. The core market does not like this. Sure, you've got your cult following of it that likes it, but the majority does not like it. And we can see the pattern and the trend. And anyone who does not like this game, the first thing that they have to say is the way it looks. Bungie had made a massive, massive failure and actually deterring away from Marathon itself. If you look at Marathon, I never played Marathon until this whole issue came up, and I looked at all the gameplay. It is nowhere near what we see in this reboot of Marathon. So you have fans of Marathon upset, you have people in Destiny and Bungie fans upset, and then you have people who you're trying to pull from the realistic military shooter. You have them upset because it's not what they want. And the whole point of making a product is to meet the needs of the market. If you're not meeting the needs of the market, you are failing. You are not going to have success. And the problem with this is we're talking about a niche environment. Well, I'm sorry to tell you, you're going to have issues. Now, there is some standout games that change that. We have Marvel Rivals. Obviously, it's more cartoonish-ish. We have Borderlands. We even have Fortnite, but it was also catered and targeted toward kids. This looks more kiddish. When we're talking about Marathon, it looks like it's Roblox mixed with Apex Legends, which is really weird. Who is this game for? Is it meant for adults, like the ones that you're trying to pull from Destiny or from Tarkov and all these Delta Force, all these other extraction shooters? Or are you trying to pull in kids? Which, if you're trying to pull in kids, they're probably not going to play it because there's Fortnite, there's Marvel Rivals. They're not going to change their games for a game because they're not loyal to Destiny. They're not playing Destiny. They're playing games like Fortnite. They're not playing Tarkov. So why make a game that looks like it's meant for children, or looks like it's meant for children with all the playful colors? And yet the people who you should be focusing on should be the realistic shooters, or try to use, Halo or Destiny as templates for graphics that would pull in the more extraction shooter players. Bungie, you have done everything possible to push away your niche audience, both from Destiny and from other extraction shooters. It's like, visually, it is not satisfying for the people who would normally play this. You're not trying to pull in a cult like what Destiny has. It's a very small cult that will always play it. You don't want to pull that. You want to pull in more, which is why you water down the whole extraction shooter process in the first place, to cast a wide net to try to get more people interested in it. But you've done everything counterproductive to try to get people interested in your game.
By stating a fact that seems kind of counterproductive and illegal to say out loud, games have never looked better. Objectively, games have never looked better, but they've also never felt more bland. We are currently in the most technologically advanced, graphically stunning, financially loaded era in gaming history, but objectively, games have never been more polished. But despite all that power, most of them feel like they're printed from the same content generation machine, and not even a good one. The answer isn't a complicated one, it's actually fairly simple. Games have stopped being games. They have now become products. You know the type. Systems built to grind, worlds that are built to funnel you into a never-ending loop of looting, gameplay designed to drip-feed dopamine at optimal retention levels, seasonal checklists, FOMO events, and cosmetic shops that load faster than the actual game itself. When a game is greenlit, it's not because it's fun or risky or original, but because it fits into a monetization model. And this is what we get. The great homogenization, the great sameness. Every game's the same now. But the prime example, at least now, especially with Marathon, is extraction shooters. Remember when every studio rushed to make a battle royale game? Now it seems like it's the extraction phase. Hunt Showdown did it well. EFT also carved its space. But now we've got Marathon, Exoborn, Shatterline, and Dead Drop, which kind of funny that some of those have gotten canceled. All chasing a trend that feels already tired.
Which goes to the last part that leads to the downfall of Marathon and could lead to its death. We talked about toxic negativity. We talked about that. And there was one part that I left out. That there are some people who have so much hate and malice, and they just want Marathon to die. They don't care what it has to offer. It could be the greatest game ever. They want it dead on arrival. They're going as far as to call it Concord because they want it to be Concord. They want it to fail. Why? Because of what Bungie has done to them.
I've seen writers, I've seen journalists, I've seen commentators and content creators and fans all sitting back going, I'm just so sick of how toxic things have become. How could you be so critical of something that's not even out yet? It's almost like we haven't been, for the better part of the last decade, watching as these companies have been torching their reputation at both ends, while also at the exact same time bending these players over backwards, taking advantage of them. You want these guys to be optimistic? What?
The disrespect, the years of disrespect, the neglect, and just the overall not caring about their previous products. I fully understand. I don't agree, but I fully understand. And I say, you know what? You have that right. I can understand people hating Bungie because of the bed that they dug.
It makes a lot of sense as to why people would be confused by the general discourse surrounding Marathon right now. They see the negativity, they see the identity politics and things like that, the heavy-handed criticisms, and they all look at it and ask, why are you rooting for something to fail that's not even out yet? And I think boiling down all that into toxicity and ideological hate misses the point entirely. People do not trust Bungie, and people do not trust Sony. And you're putting them in the same room together. And that's not a good combination. That's not what players are looking for.
People don't want to invest and buy a game from a company that they don't trust. And Bungie and even Sony have burned their reputation. More likely Bungie than Sony. Bungie has just destroyed all reputation that they have. Even the whole Destiny founders of Halo, that's going down the toilet because this game looks nothing like Halo. So the people who are like, oh, they made Halo, I'm excited, and then they see this, they're like, that looks nothing like Halo. This isn't the Bungie. I don't remember this Bungie. And people don't trust them because all the years of errors. We're not even talking about the mass layoffs, the fact that their developers talked about how they fear for their own jobs and safety, the lawsuits for the sexual harassment. Hell, I got a clip for you to watch.
But now so much of that push is dead, and Bungie is a very different studio to the one that PlayStation acquired. You've got the Final Shape, which was really good, but its shot at undoing the mess that was Lightfall has essentially been squandered. That game is struggling per player numbers, they've changed the monetization, they've changed the content model, and broadly, Bungie have had so many other issues. There have been multiple layoff rounds. Those layoff rounds have led to people leaking to the press, talking about awful morale and people having a dim view of the future. A future made even more dim by, well, PlayStation management publicly blaming Bungie's leadership for failing to meet targets. Not that being rumored, in actual investor-facing statements, them getting the blame. And currently, there is a belief that the board of Bungie are essentially just playing for time until their stock options from that acquisition can be divested. So basically, they will be able to sell their stock, be very rich, and then leave.
All those issues has caused people not to trust. The fact that the Destiny is advertised as a free-to-play game, yet it's actually a free-to-try, because in order to actually play Destiny 2, the game, you need to buy all the things that give you access. Meanwhile, it is full of microtransactions. We talked about Marathon and it selling skins. Boy, talk about distrust. People do not trust Bungie with anything when it comes to microtransactions. I mean, you're talking about a game that's going to be $40, rumored. You got a battle pass that's paid. You got skins that are paid. Hell, I guarantee if there's any skins in the game that are free, they're not going to look good. Because if you look at Destiny, we have free versus the paid. It's rare to get good free skins if you get any, but the paid is plentiful, very plentiful. Which again, it'd be one thing if this is a free-to-play game. I'm willing to say, yeah, that's okay to sell it on a product, you know. But we're talking about you're paying for it. And I have the same issue with Call of Duty. Let's not get it twisted. A lot of people, some of the biggest complaints is that they're pushing a lot MTX in Call of Duty. So this isn't just a Marathon issue, but instead of learning from their competitor, which it is a competitor, anything live service is already in the competitive field. It may not be the same category, but it's in a live service genre. It is a competitor for people's time and money. And so why would I spend $20 in Marathon when I can spend, $20 looking like Nicki Minaj with caked up cheeks and tatas, and I could just stare at it. I couldn't say that with a straight face. By the way, that goes to show that sex appeal does actually work in video games.
And on the topic of the art style, something that I am just automatically worried about are the microtransactions in this game. Since literally the first time that I played this game, I have been very, very vocal about this game not going down the live service art style route. And last week when I made that issue apparent, I was told that they're currently looking at the kind of artistic range of the game that they can create cosmetics in. But at the end of the day, we've heard that before with loads of other franchises, money is king. If they need to make money and doing so means breaking that artistic range, then it's gonna happen. And I am fearful for that. I just want this game to keep looking as good as it looks now and go more down the kind of like Marathon aesthetic route as opposed to down the stupid live service art style route.
But moving on to the point where we're trying to talk about trust. Bungie is trying desperately to try to pull from Destiny, even though they've burnt and used and abused that community. They're also trying to pull in other people who've seen the layoffs, all the vaulted content, which is funny. It is funny when you listen to content creators who don't play Destiny, and yet the first thing that they say negative about Bungie is that they vault paid content. It is crazy how the sins of Bungie is finally catching up to them. I do not feel sorry. I do not care if they lose developers. In the free market, it is not about your feelings. It's about the product. And it's time that we smell the roses. That when you're talking about games, the market decides the value of a product. And the product right now is half cooked, undone. No one correct myself. Majority of the market does not like the art look of it. And most of the people don't trust Bungie.
This has been a reoccurring theme in some of my recent videos, and Marathon might be the best case study yet that we've seen for what happens to a studio when it's burned through it entirely. What the media, publishers, developers, and even other players often miss out on, it's not just the tone that matters when it comes to criticism, it's the source. Where is all of this unrest coming from? As a studio, your foundation for your next game should be the players that you already have. You build trust with them, you reward their loyalty, you grow from there. You do not abandon them to go chase an audience that you never even had, especially when that audience that you do have is already skeptical. But that's exactly what Bungie is doing here, because I don't think that Destiny players want Marathon, and I don't think the outsiders looking in are any more convinced after seeing how Bungie treats its own customers and their staff. They have turned their reputation into a currency, and they've spent all of it. Sure, some criticisms may be hyperbolic, and yeah, in today's political climate, it's easy to fall back on ideological explanations, but let's set all of that aside for a second. look at what's actually going on here. Let's look at the history here. Look at Destiny 2. Why would anyone trust Bungie? Why would anyone want to get excited for their next game? Destiny 2 brought with it a slow, relentless shift into predatory monetization. In-game rewards were stripped away and moved into the Eververse store. Then came content vaulting, an entire expansion that players had paid for, removed from the game. No refunds, no apologies, no real benefit for the players. Then they started sunsetting weapons that players had grinded for, invalidating progress, all in the name of balance, only for them to reverse course on that later. Then Sony bought them for $3.6 billion. Players were promised. They were told that things would get better, more transparency, faster content, better communication. Instead, monetization got worse, content got buggier, and the development cycle slowed to a crawl. Then came the layoffs. Sony started gutting the studio, cutting narrative leads and veteran developers. The same people who built what fans loved were then tossed aside. Reports of crunch, discrimination, and a toxic workplace then followed. Lawsuits then after that, all coming from a studio that constantly paraded around its progressive values in public, but apparently all for nothing. And after all of that, what do players get? They got Lightfall, a broken, bloated, recycled expansion that felt more like filler and cost the same as a full-price title. You know, let's not forget that this is the same Bungie that charges $150 for a free-to-play game, though Steam estimates it'll cost you over $450 if it's not all in a bundle for Destiny 2. There are battle passes, paid dungeons, cosmetic bundles, event cards, paywalled expansions, and a $60 expansion cycle. While it definitely seems that the game's latest expansion was received well, why would players be excited for anything that Bungie then puts out after this? They don't trust them, and frankly, they shouldn't. There's no loyalty left, no goodwill, just the appearance of a studio that's looking for new ways to squeeze the last few dollars out of whoever's left around. This is one of the reasons why they keep losing players, and when you treat players like disposable wallets, you can't be surprised when they treat your next project like a joke. Bungie and Sony are gambling with their franchises, betting everything on growth, on shareholder satisfaction, on live service revenue, but you don't build trust by gambling.
Any goodwill they throw in the dumpster, they lie, they deceive, they gaslight, and now they're paying for their sins. That's right, Bungie. You're paying for your sins. I do not feel bad that you're getting hate. I do not feel bad that you're getting disinterest and people are crapping on your game. That is your fault. And guess what? Your ball fondler content creators cannot save you. They just won't, because that's not how the free market works. The free market determines the value of the product, and your job is to make a product for the free market. And if you're targeting a niche, a small target, and you were diminishing that product for even smaller, you're going to get a small payout. And we all know that Bungie doesn't need this to be another niche like Destiny. They need this to be a massive AAA game that pops off. It needs to be as successful as like Helldivers when it launched. It needs to be as successful as like Fortnite. Because if it doesn't, Bungie's going to die. Bungie is going to have repercussions. There's literally a gun. I see the gun right there in class, which you shouldn't have, by the way, but Sony has a gun to Bungie's head. It's death time. Literally, if it doesn't pop off, it doesn't meet expectations, Bungie is going to get absorbed by Sony, or a lot more people other than 700 people are going to lose their jobs. What's even funnier is that Bungie is so desperate that even their leaders are nervous about the state of the game, that they've gone and actually removed the NDA for the alpha. That's right. That is so how bad the situation is for Bungie, is that the leaders are actually nervous, which doesn't look good for Marathon at all. And whose fault that is? Bungie and Sony. But mostly Bungie and their leaders, but also the developers that are also making some of the decisions. Because let's be honest, it's not all just leaders. I know for a fact that Pete Parsons could care less that there is no like proximity chat in a video game. He probably doesn't even know what proximity chat is. Let's be honest. What's that? What's proximity chat? What? I have chat. I have MySpace still. I don't know. Is MySpace even a thing? But you get what I say. You can't just sit here and say all the developers are innocent, because they're not. They're not. And they're making decisions that is meant for them. Again, Bungie's motto is we make games we play, or we want to play, when they should make games that the the consumer wants to play. No one gives a shit if you want to play your own game. We already know you don't. Based on Destiny, you don't play your own game. So why are you telling us that? Like, don't make a game you don't even play. Make a game that other people want to play. There it is. Don't ask me to come back to the classroom. I don't do lessons, but I hope Bungie and Sony, you learned a lesson, because when this thing releases and it's not free to play, you don't take this advice, you're going to learn. You're going to learn that day. You're going to learn that day. I'm just saying it. I don't care what happens in Marathon, because the 23rd, my happy butt is playing Borderlands. And yes, I know people are talking about how this thing is going to die because of Borderlands, and I do agree to a certain extent it's going to hurt it pretty hefty, especially if it's not free to play. If it's free to play, it's going to be like people are going to play Marathon before Borderlands because they have to pay for Borderlands, whereas free to play, you can immediately play it. If you don't like it, you can then go to Borderlands. That's why I also say if they make it free to play, they are going to increase their chances of pulling a bigger audience right off the rip compared to Borderlands. But let's be honest, whenever Grand Theft Auto comes out, it's going to overshadow any game that's out there. It doesn't even matter. Grand Theft Auto, even if it's a dumpster fire game, Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to pull everyone. Everything on Twitch and YouTube is going to be Grand Theft Auto for like a week or a month straight, if not longer. We'll see if they're smart enough to do that. I don't think so, Cotton, but we're going to find out in the next one. I'm Mr. Gaming Counselor. Hit the like button, comment down below, and subscribe to the channel for more. As always, don't forget to game out. Boy, I am sweaty. People talk about my greasy hair. Listen, this is greasy hair. I've got so much sweat. Oh, you've got a sweaty teacher, kids. Woo-wee.